with on-point inspection services, investment in peace of mind. Just came up with that. If you guys got a better slogan, I'd love to hear it. And I'm a home inspector, so I'm going to inspect all different kinds of your parts of your house. One of the things that structural components was something I'm very strong in. I was a union carpenter for 8 years, built in commercial and residential homes. Obviously the foundation, the structural frame, the support beams, are they plumb, are they supporting what they're supposed to support, are there joist hangers where they're supposed to be joist hangers, that kind of thing. The roof framing, are there collar ties, is it sagging, that kind of thing. Is it properly supported to hold the weight that it needs to? The exterior, we're going to inspect the exterior wall finishes, the roof, porches and decks. There's a lot of porches and decks that are built very poorly. Lot grading is very important, and a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of sump pump money that people put into their house would have been probably unnecessary if they would have regraded their house if possible. Sometimes you can't because of the way the neighbor's house sits or whatever. You need a drainage system, but just keeping the water away from the house is a huge deal, and it will help a lot with the basement. Another thing we're going to look at is the electrical system. I can only inspect what you can see. So we're going to open up the electrical box and see if everything's bonded, see if there's any arcing that caused the fire, if the wire sizes are right, make sure the wires don't overheat, that kind of thing. I'm going to check the plugs to make sure they're wired properly. They're not just 3-pronged without any ground to over, that kind of thing, or reverse polarity where they're wired backwards, that kind of thing. Fairly simple. But it's going to make sure that there's no major problems with electrical in your house, and it's not going to burn down next week. Always a plus. Plumbing. I guess one of the pictures didn't work for the hot water heater, but I think everybody knows what a hot water heater looks like. Supply piping, we're going to look for dissimilar metals touching the copper, which will erode it and cause leaks at some point. We're going to look for pinch points if somebody used a flexible piping instead of just the solid copper piping. If you have, and if, in the 60s and 70s they used galvanized piping that rusts, it corrodes, it sometimes turn the water on, it'll be like a rust color to it. It can really hurt your water pressure by causing extra friction in the water line. Then your waste piping, make sure that, if you have a cast iron or something, make sure that it's not blistering and getting ready to fail. HVAC, I'm going to check out your furnace and your AC units, and make sure that all your vents work properly. Sometimes, when they build the house, they don't cut out the hole in the floor studs to make the returns work right, or the temperature's not up to par, that kind of thing. And it's also my job to educate the homeowner as much as inspect it, so I can tell them how things work, what things to look for, that kind of thing. And if there's a problem, I'll call it out if it's an issue. And then the interior, where walls, floors, doors, windows, make sure they work right. The sashes in the windows aren't all jammed up or broken. Cracks in the ceiling. Every home tells a story. So if there's a lot of movement or shifting or something that needs to be addressed, then there's going to be cracks in certain places, that kind of thing. Doors won't open or shut, or the header will be, up and down, not level at all. So, you just take a look around, you check everything out, and then we're down to my past experience. I was a union carpenter for 8 years and a roofing project manager for 2. I've also been actually trained, so I have a lot of background in the building a home and how it works. And now I'm also welcome to any questions, but also just to throw it out there, I give veterans and first-time home buyers discounts. First-time home buyers get $25 off, veterans get $50 off. If you're both, you get $75 off, so that's a big difference for our service members and first-time home buyers who really need to learn a lot about a house.
Yeah, I was going to give a testimonial, but that would actually be hard, so kind of maybe said that. Smart of you, though. But anyway, and I believe I gave you your first client, didn't I?
Yep.
Awesome. But no, anyway, though, it is very cool, though, when you have an inspector that has a background like Andrew does, because, you can go to, a school, anybody can go, and become an inspector, but having the background that he does for one, I think puts him, even though he's newer to the inspector, but he's already, worlds ahead of 90% of them, they don't have the kind of background like he does. I've worked with him with roofs, did all my dad's roofing, he knows everything about roofs. He's phenomenal. And just the little things too. I was actually looking at an inspection from a different location. Personal, my client had a church person.
Hey,
Anyway,
I'm not mad at you.
I am.
That goes, so there was no, yeah. But anyway, I mean, I was reading through his, I mean, just the way you categorize your, the way he categorizes out everything, I mean, it's very easy to follow. I mean, everything has, subcategories to everything, so I mean, it's very easy to walk through and see. So I mean, I would recommend Andrew to anyone, and he does a very good job of explaining to the client as well. I know, Zach and Jay were more than happy with your, analysis that you gave them, and I even learned a lot from it too, so I mean, I'd recommend anyone, honestly, so.
Well, nobody's got mad at me yet, so you're doing something right.
No, I mean, he really is good, though. He does a very good job, but I'm very impressed too, so.
What's the most common thing people need to fix?
Foundation.
Every house has problems. One of the big things that people do is, Kyle probably can attest this from the siding company, people will caulk the siding with the windows, and oftentimes it'll pour in the inside, and it'll cause leaks. Toilet needs to be tightened down, dissimilar metals in the piping is often a common problem. Really, those are the big ones that you see a lot of. Dishwasher doesn't have the loop in there, stuff like that. Simple stuff, but there's a lot of things like that. Doors don't close right, which can vary on the weather. It could be in the winter. I got doors in my house that will shut in the winter, it won't shut in the summer. But my house is special.
Do you have to replace AC units that are old or only if they're defective?
Only they're defective. If somebody's got a 20-year-old AC unit, and typically they last 15 years, I'll say, yeah, it's 20 years old, but it's working. I'm not going to say you need to replace this unit if it's still working. Because there's sometimes they'll last 25 or 30 years on that. You never know. I'll say it's the end of life, but I'm not going to go past that and say they need to replace it because
Even if it's not current code?
For an AC unit, there's not really your AC unit can be so many years old. There's not really a code for how old the AC unit's got. But I'll check and make sure it's got insulation on the line. People want to put insulation on the line. A lot of times it's eating away, handles eat away on the outside, and that'll hurt your efficiency of your AC unit.
When most people think of home inspections, they think when they're first buying a house or buying an existing house. You do go out and, like you said at the beginning, peace of mind. You will go out to somebody's house who just wants to make sure that everything is in good working order.
Right.
I mean, you will go out and do that if somebody.
Yeah, if somebody requests me to do that too, and also if somebody doesn't want a full report, they just want me to come walk through their house before they buy it or something, they just want something simple where somebody goes through it, then that's really like, it's only gonna take me an hour, so I do it for half price, if there's no report. The liability's not there for me because there's no report, that kind of thing. I'll also go out if somebody's building a new home. I haven't really advertised about it, but if somebody's building a new home, and they want me to go out there during the stages of a build, so, the foundation, make sure the footings are all right, the rebar's there, the anchor bolts are there. I mean, I've seen them where they don't have bolts, they might have the bolts, but they don't have the nut, the house is actually anchored down. And then you look at the framing, so you can see it all before it's covered up with drywall. And Chris, I'm sure, can attest to some of the things that home builders will do, or guys that just pushed. I mean, they have such little time to build a house. I mean, I remember when I was a union carpenter, we had this house we walked into, we had 70-something man hours from the first time I hung that particular model, and we had 56 by the time I left McBride.
It's hilarious you say that because I wish I would have known you 6 years ago. When we built our house, it was 5 or 6 years ago, and two of the 5 things you mentioned earlier happened to ours within 2 years. One was the caulking of the downstairs window, and we had a leak on one huge storm, and
right.
Obviously, and then another one was they didn't seal the bottom of I think our lower level toilet, and it ended up leaking. And then we found out that they didn't tighten it or whatever, and they had just stuffed a bunch of towels up there, so it would take a long time to actually find out that the leak was there.
Oh, that's evil.
You gotta remember, they're also these guys are pushed, and they're pushed hard.
Well, that's great.
And it's also part of the game is all these houses they're built by the lowest bidder, so you gotta remember that. Sometimes customers, I found when I was in roofing, customers sometimes are just as guilty as the contractor because you say, this is how much it's going to cost to do it right, And then, but we can do it for this much, it'll be all right for 5 or 10 years, they'll say, oh, well, let's do that. You know,
And
it's
we
done
were
really.
we were one of the last ones in the subdivision, so I mean,
They were done.
Right.
I know what our neighbors paid, and I know what
Right.
we paid, and
Right.
that was, I was like,
Another,
I'm not gonna tell my neighbor.
another common spot to look for leaks, if you could see it in the basement, underneath door thresholds. A lot of times they don't have the 6-inch drop they're supposed to, especially in decks, they're built right up to that threshold. And often, and that's the way a lot of people want it, especially if they're older, they don't want to step down. You know, a lot of people, that's how they want it. And a lot of times they build that deck level, and you're really supposed to have about a 1/4 inch every couple feet off of that. But it's just one place that always leaks, and caulking is something people overlook all the time. People caulk something once, they think it's gonna last 20 years. You could spend the most amount of money possible on caulk, and it's only gonna last a couple, 3 years really before some part of it cracks. I mean, things just change sizes at different rates of temperature and moisture. Karen, you up first.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffery.
Well, you're welcome.
So I just want to say two things. One, Andrew does do what he says he's going to do. So I think your comments were spot on when Scott was given the educational thing. I know that's your philosophy, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and you're going to show up. And so I think that's awesome. And also just being a woman, I think, Andrew, that you're not too scary, like, to come into my house, so.
You're a little scary, but not too scary.
So, right, because, listen, okay, all right. Because it is scary to have somebody come in, right?
Sure it is.
Okay, right? Am I
Absolutely.
right? Okay,
You better
so
believe it.
I think that's something that speaks a lot to you and your demeanor and how you treat people and talk to people and the rapport that you build. And I think that's really important, particularly for women, if you're a single person or whatever and you're bringing a person into your home, that can be really frightening. So that's I'm
Kudos.
trying to give you a testimonial. So very well, but anyway, I
You make me
think
feel good, Karen. You always do.
anybody would be
I actually
happy
had
to
several
use
customers
him.
that I sent Andrew to, and, you know, obviously not as an inspector, but just as a person, he took really good care of them. They all made sure they called him and told me what a good job he did.
Aw.
So now I'm looking for
Pat on the
somebody to
back.
replace you on that end. So is Rick Chapman, by the way.
Yeah, I talked to Rick, that's another story.
That's
I wouldn't
not-
use the companies that I work with.
That's not usual.
Just a quick question.
Oopsie.
What do you guys charge, what do you charge for inspection? I know square footage, but.
I actually changed
average?
that to price from the listing price. I went up to 3.5 because I was the cheapest one out there. But from there, it goes up $25 every $25,000 in listing price or contract price. And that seems to be right in line with everybody else.
And what about termite and radon? Do you do your own or do you?
I have people that I work
Subcontractor.
with. I have a radon guy, a friend of Donna Markham's actually, and I've got a termite guy, and I've got a sewer lateral guy. So I can set up all those things for you, and that way you're only paying me, and we go from there. And that way you don't have to worry about setting up 6 different things like set up to their wall there at the same time, if possible. Radon obviously is a 2-day process, so they may be there 2 days before me, the same day as me, or it may be a little bit more planning. But you know, he's there for 10 minutes, and then he comes back and he's there for 10 minutes. So.
Right. Hey, but you do explain to them that they can't have any windows open and all that. the
Right.
Procedure.
Yeah, he'll explain that.
Because
to
most
them.
homeowners don't,
Get that.
yeah.
They probably don't listen to you, even if they do get it.
It's
You know?
true.
Right.
It's true.
They don't want to pay for the mediation.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much.